I've been delivering for a food service app for about 3 years now. You'd think it's a pretty normal gig: pick up food, drop it off, repeat. Most nights, it's just that. But once in a while, you get a delivery that makes you question everything. This happened about 2 months ago. It's taken me this long to even talk about it because, honestly, I still don't have an explanation that makes sense. It was a Friday night, around 11:30 p.m. I was already pushing my limits, but the app threw me one last order before I was about to log off, a $45 payout. That's insanely high for a single delivery, and I wasn't about to pass it up. The restaurant was a 24-hour diner on the edge of town, a place called Miller's Grub, the kind of spot where truckers and night owls gather over greasy burgers and stale coffee. I'd been there plenty of times, and their staff knew me by name. The order was large: 2 double cheeseburgers, a full rack of ribs, a side of mashed potatoes, cornbread, and a slice of pecan pie. Nothing too weird, but the delivery address. That's what caught my attention. The pin was dropped way out past the city limits, deep into an area where the roads get narrow, the streetlights disappear, and the woods start swallowing everything. There were no actual street names, just a set of coordinates. That was my first red flag. I even hesitated for a second, but then I told myself, come on, man. It's just some dude who lives out in the sticks. Big tip. Easy money. I hit accept and drove to Miller's Grub. The place was mostly empty, just one guy at the counter sipping coffee and the waitress, Angie, who was mid-yawn when I walked in. She handed me the bag without a word but gave me a weird look. Big order, I joked, hoping she'd say something. Yeah, she muttered, rubbing her eyes. Who's it for? I glanced at my phone. No name, just an address. Not sure. It's way out in the woods somewhere, I said. She frowned. I don't remember anyone calling that in. Was it through the app? Yeah. She gave me another odd look but shrugged it off. Guess someone's got a serious craving. I grabbed the order and walked out. That would be the last normal moment of my night. The drive started fine. I left the main highway and turned onto an old country road that stretched into the hills. I'd been on similar roads before, long, winding, with nothing but trees on either side. My GPS showed a 35-minute drive, most of it through back roads. At first, there were scattered houses, big, lonely properties with long driveways and porch lights barely visible through the trees. But soon, those disappeared, and the road got narrower. It was pitch black, no streetlights, just my headlights cutting through the dark. About 15 minutes in, I lost cell service. That's when I got my second red flag. I don't know if you've ever driven alone on a road where your GPS stops updating, and all you've got is a blue dot on the screen that doesn't move anymore. But it's the kind of feeling that sinks into your chest. Like you just entered a place you're not supposed to be. I kept driving. The road turned to gravel, then to dirt. At this point, I was deep in the woods. The trees pressed in on both sides, and my headlights barely reached past the trunks. I slowed down, gripping the wheel tighter. Finally, I saw it. A house. It was a 2-story wooden cabin, barely visible in the dark. There were no lights on inside. No porch light. No signs of movement. Just a long driveway leading up to it. The kind of place that looked abandoned, but wasn't. My stomach clenched. Every instinct told me to turn around. But then I thought, maybe they just forgot to leave a light on. Maybe they're asleep. I was being paranoid. Right? I pulled in slowly, stopping just before the porch. The engine hummed in the silence. I grabbed the food, stepped out, and walked up to the door. The wooden steps creaked under my weight. I knocked twice. Silence. No movement inside. I knocked again, harder this time. Nothing. Then my phone buzzed in my pocket. I didn't have service, so how was I getting a notification? I pulled it out, and my stomach dropped. It was a message from the delivery app. Order delivered. Thank you, Adam. That was my name. I hadn't marked the order as delivered. And that's when I noticed the receipt in my hand. I hadn't looked at it before, I never do. But something made me glance down, and when I did, I felt actual fear crawl up my spine. Printed at the top, in bold letters, was my full name. Adam Carter. Below that, my address. My actual home address. I felt my breath hitch. And then, I heard movement inside the house that I swear on everything, I almost dropped the food right there. The second I heard movement inside that house, every hair on my body stood up. It wasn't loud, just a slight shuffle, like someone shifting their weight on an old wooden floor. But in that dead silence, it might as well have been a gunshot. I stepped back instinctively, my shoes scuffing against the porch. My brain was racing. Who was inside? Why was my name on the receipt? I glanced down at my phone again, hoping, praying, that I had service. I didn't. The message from the app was still open, staring at me like a bad joke. Order delivered. Thank you, Adam. I tried to steady my breathing. Think. Maybe the app glitched. Maybe the name was a mistake. Maybe I was just psyching myself out. I turned back to the door, debating whether to knock one last time or just get the hell out. That's when I saw it. The door wasn't latched. The first 2 times I knocked, I didn't notice. But now, standing this close, I saw it wasn't shut all the way. There was a gap, small, maybe half an inch, but enough to see the darkness inside. Enough to see that the door had been unlocked the whole time. Another sound. Closer this time. A slow, deliberate step. I stepped back again, my heartbeat slamming against my ribs. Then, the door creaked open. Not fast. Not yanked open. Just enough. Like someone inside wanted me to know they were there. I froze. My hands clenched around the food bag like it was a lifeline. The opening in the door was maybe 2 inches now. Just enough to see past the frame and into the house. Nothing but darkness. And then, a whisper. Not words. Just breath. Like someone standing just past the doorframe, exhaling slowly. I stepped back so fast I almost fell off the porch. The bag crinkled in my hands, and for a split second, I actually thought about just dropping it and running. But before I could decide, something happened that nearly made my legs buckle. A hand slid out from the gap. Pale. Motionless. Fingers curled slightly, like it had been waiting there the whole time. I didn't wait to see what it did next. I turned, sprinted down the porch steps, and nearly threw myself into my car. I jammed the keys into the ignition with shaking hands, barely managing to start the engine. My headlights flooded the driveway as I reversed, kicking up gravel. And then, the porch light flicked on. For the first time, I saw the house clearly. The wooden siding was old, warped from weather. The front window was cracked in one corner, covered with what looked like plastic wrap and duct tape. The number, 241, was nailed to the front, one of the numbers missing a screw so it dangled sideways. And standing just inside the doorway, behind the still partially open door, was a figure. I couldn't see details. Just a tall, thin silhouette. Motionless. Watching me. I didn't stick around to get a better look. I slammed the car into drive and sped down the dirt road so fast I nearly lost control. Gravel crunched under my tires as I swerved back onto the main road. My breath was ragged, shaky, like I'd just run a marathon. I kept glancing in my rearview mirror, half expecting to see someone, something, chasing me. But the road was empty. I didn't stop driving until I was back near town, parked in a well-lit gas station. My hands were still shaking as I gripped the wheel. And that's when I remembered the receipt. I dug into my pocket, pulling out the crumpled slip. My name. My address. Printed clear as day. Who ordered this? Who sent me there? And the worst question of all, how did they know where I live? I sat in that gas station parking lot for at least 10 minutes, my hand still gripping the wheel like I expected something to come bursting out of the darkness after me. I kept staring at the crumpled receipt. My name. My home address. What the hell was going on? My first instinct was to check the app logs, maybe I could see where the order came from, or at least a phone number attached to it. But when I opened the app, my stomach dropped. The order wasn't there. It was gone. Not just marked as completed or delivered, completely erased. I swiped through my past deliveries, but the most recent one showing was the order before Miller's Grub. No sign of the one that sent me to that house. Like it never happened. That's when my phone rang. The screen lit up with a number I didn't recognize. No caller ID. I stared at it, my thumb hovering over the decline button. But something in my gut told me to answer. I hit accept and put it to my ear. Silence. Not the usual kind, where you hear faint breathing or background noise. This was a dead silence. A void. Then, a whisper. Low. Slow. Almost dragging out the words. Did you get the delivery, Adam? My breath caught in my throat. I didn't respond. I couldn't. The whisper continued. You shouldn't have left so fast. Click. The line went dead. I yanked my phone away from my ear like it had burned me. My hands were clammy, my heart slamming against my chest. Nope. No. Absolutely not. I shoved the car into gear and peeled out of the parking lot, heading straight home. I live in an apartment complex on the outskirts of town, nothing fancy, just a small one-bedroom unit on the second floor. Normally, when I get home after a shift, I take my time. Maybe grab a snack, scroll through my phone, unwind. Not that night. I parked, sprinted up the stairs, and locked the door behind me. Deadbolt, chain, everything. For the first time in years, I actually checked my windows. Locked. I even pulled the blinds shut, my nerves still on edge. I dropped onto my couch, my mind spinning. Who called me? How did they know my name? My number? And worst of all, why did they sound like they were inside that house? I needed to calm down. I needed to do something normal. So I grabbed a beer from the fridge, sat back on the couch, and forced myself to take a deep breath. It was just some messed up prank. That's all. Right? Then, my phone buzzed again. I flinched so hard I nearly dropped the bottle. A text message. No name. No number. Just one message. I tapped it open with shaking hands. You left something behind. Attached was a photo. It was dark and grainy, but I recognized it instantly. My car. Parked in that gas station lot. Someone had taken it, while I was sitting inside that I swear to God, my body locked up when I saw that photo. My car. The gas station. The exact spot where I had been sitting 10 minutes ago. Whoever sent this, whoever took the picture, had been there, watching me. I shot up from my couch, my pulse hammering. I couldn't breathe right. My apartment suddenly felt too small, the walls pressing in. I checked my windows again, making sure the blinds were down, but it didn't help. Somebody knew where I was. I checked the sender. No number. No name. Just the message. I hit reply anyway, my fingers shaking. Who is this? No response. I waited, pacing the room, my mind spinning. Had someone followed me? Had they been outside the gas station? Had they been at the house? 5 minutes passed. 10. Then my phone buzzed again. Another text. This one just said, "Look outside." I stopped breathing. For a full 10 seconds, I just stood there, completely frozen. Then, very slowly, I turned toward my living room window. The blinds were closed. But there was a gap between them, just a tiny sliver where two of the panels didn't quite meet. I stepped closer, barely breathing. The gap was small, but it was enough. Enough to see that, down in the parking lot, standing between the streetlights, was a figure. I couldn't make out a face. Just a tall, thin silhouette. Motionless. Facing my building. Facing me. I stumbled back so fast I nearly tripped over my coffee table. My heartbeat was in my ears. My hands felt numb. No. No, no, no. This wasn't happening. I grabbed my phone and dialed 911. I didn't care if it was a prank. I didn't care if I sounded crazy. Someone was outside my damn apartment, watching me. The call rang once. Twice. Then, static. Not a dead line. Not a voicemail. Just pure, crackling static. I yanked the phone from my ear, staring at the screen. The call was still connected. The timer was running. Then, beneath the static, I heard it. Breathing. Slow. Deep. Like someone was on the line, listening. I hung up so fast my thumb hurt. I couldn't think. Couldn't move. I just stood there, my mind screaming at me to do something, anything. Then, bang. A knock at my door. I nearly jumped out of my skin. Not a normal knock. Not like a neighbor asking for something. This was slow. Deliberate. 3 loud knocks. I turned toward the door, my whole body buzzing with fear. Then my phone buzzed again. Another message. Open the door, Adam. I don't think I've ever been more terrified in my life. I stood there, staring at my phone, my heart pounding so hard it felt like my ribs were about to crack. Open the door, Adam. Another knock. Louder this time. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. My apartment suddenly felt like a trap, small, suffocating, inescapable. I forced myself to step back. 1. 2. 3 steps. Away from the door. Away from whoever, or whatever, was standing on the other side. The room was silent. Except for my breathing. And the faintest creak of wood. I wasn't imagining it. Whoever was outside, was shifting their weight. Standing right there. Waiting. I gripped my phone like a lifeline. My hands were slick with sweat as I dialed 911 again. Ring. Ring. Then, static. Again. I clenched my jaw to keep from making a sound, pressing the phone to my ear. The static crackled through the speaker, distorting, shifting. And beneath it, the breathing. Long, deep. Slow. My stomach twisted. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run. Then, whispering. Not over the phone. From the hallway. Right outside my door. I couldn't make out the words. Just the sound of someone speaking, low and quiet, muttering under their breath. My eyes darted to the peephole. I hesitated. Every instinct screamed at me not to look. But I had to. Slowly, so slowly, I stepped forward. Leaned in. Pressed my eye to the glass. At first, I saw nothing. Just the dimly lit hallway. The door to my neighbor's unit. The scuffed linoleum floor. Then, movement. a shadow shifting at the edge of my vision. I inhaled sharply, trying to focus. And then, a face moved into view. Too close. Pressed against the peephole from the other side. I stumbled backward so fast I nearly fell. My back slammed against the opposite wall. My legs wouldn't work. My whole body felt like ice. The whispering stopped. For a long, horrible second, there was nothing but silence. Then, the doorknob turned. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. I watched in horror as the knob twisted slowly. Testing the lock. Checking if I had made a mistake. Click. 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 I hadn't. The deadbolt held. The chain was still latched. The door didn't open. The knob stopped moving. Another long silence. Then, a whisper, so quiet I barely heard it. Next time, lock your windows. My blood ran cold. I spun around, eyes darting to my bedroom. The window. The blinds. I had locked them. I was sure I had locked them. But I had checked in a panic. Had I missed one? I didn't wait to find out. I grabbed the nearest thing I could, a lamp, and bolted for my bedroom. My breath hitched in my throat as I skidded to a stop. The window was shut. But the blinds were moving. Something was inside that I didn't move. I couldn't. The blinds swayed ever so slightly, the faintest rustling sound cutting through the thick silence of my apartment. The window was shut. But that didn't matter. Something was already inside. My fingers tightened around the lamp in my hand, my knuckles white. I tried to slow my breathing, but my chest felt too tight, my pulse hammering against my ribs. Then, a creak. A floorboard near my bed. I swallowed hard, my eyes darting toward the corner of the room. The shadows were thick there, the light from the street barely cutting through the slats of the blinds. And then, I saw it. A figure. Motionless. Too tall. Too thin. Standing in the dark. Watching me. The light from the hallway cast just enough of a glow for me to make out the edges of a face. Not quite human. The proportions were wrong. The skin, too pale. Too stretched. I sucked in a sharp breath, and it moved. Fast. Too fast. I didn't think. I threw the lamp. It smashed against the wall with a loud crash, and in that split second, I bolted. I didn't go for the front door. I knew I wouldn't make it. I sprinted for the bathroom instead, slamming the door shut and locking it. I pressed my back against it, chest heaving, my entire body trembling. My mind was screaming, trying to process what I had just seen, what had been standing in my room. Then, a sound. Scraping. Low. Slow. Right outside the door. Like fingernails dragging along the wood. I squeezed my eyes shut, gripping the sink behind me, trying to force myself to wake up from this nightmare. This isn't real. It can't be real. But then, the whisper came again. Right at the crack of the door. You shouldn't have left the house so fast, Adam. I nearly screamed. I did the only thing I could. I turned, ripped open the bathroom window, and climbed out. My foot slipped on the fire escape, and I nearly lost my balance, but I didn't stop. I didn't look back. I just ran. Down the steps. Through the parking lot. Into the street. I didn't care where I was going. I just needed to get away from my apartment, from whatever the hell was inside it. But as I ran, my phone buzzed again. I hesitated. My fingers were shaking as I pulled it out of my pocket. One new message. No name. No number. Just 3 words. We're not done. I don't know how long I ran. I didn't have a plan. No destination. Just pure, animal panic driving me forward. My legs burned. My lungs screamed. But I didn't stop. Not until I was blocks away from my apartment, standing beneath the sickly glow of a streetlight, hands on my knees, gasping for breath. I checked my phone again. We're not done. I swallowed hard, my fingers trembling as I hovered over the message. Then, another buzz. A new message. This time, it wasn't text. It was a photo. I hesitated. My gut twisted. I didn't want to open it. But I had to. I tapped the screen. The image loaded. It was my bedroom. A photo taken from inside my apartment. The bed. The open closet door. The window I had climbed out of. And standing in the corner, near the blinds, a figure. Tall. Motionless. Watching. I dropped my phone. I actually dropped it, my hands going numb, my breath catching in my throat. They were still there. They had taken the photo after I left. I looked around, my eyes darting across the empty street. Everything was too quiet. Were they watching me now? I took a step back. Then another. I needed to get somewhere safe. A police station. A crowded area. Anywhere but here. But just as I turned, my phone buzzed again. I didn't pick it up. I didn't want to. Then, a faint creak. Not from my phone. From behind me. I felt it before I saw it. A presence. Close. Too close. I turned my head, my heart hammering so hard it felt like it would burst. And there, standing just a few feet away, was a figure. Tall. Too thin. Unmoving. The streetlight behind it barely illuminated its face, but I saw just enough. A stretched out grin. Eyes too dark. A face that wasn't quite human. I opened my mouth to scream. But the last thing I remember, was everything going black. I woke up the next morning. Not in the street. Not in a hospital. In my apartment. In my bed. The blinds were closed. The window was shut. My phone was on the nightstand, the screen blank. No messages. No calls. No photos. Like nothing had ever happened. Like it was just a bad dream. But when I sat up, my throat dry, my pulse still racing. I noticed something. My uniform. The one I had been wearing during the delivery. Neatly folded on my dresser. And on top of it, a crumpled receipt. With my name. And a new address. Not mine. Somewhere deeper in the woods. And below it, a handwritten message. Your next delivery is ready.